Hollywood has mastered the art of the long take action sequences. Instead of cutting up a scene of dozens of clips, these sequences artfully stage a tracking shot that keeps the camera on the action.
What are you saying?
This adds to the immersion of the scene by keeping you in the action at all times. So, let's take a long look through some of the best of these set pieces to see which one is the most brutal. The Avengers might just be the single most influential film of the 21st century, so far. The movie gets a lot of attention for the legendary long shot that took us through all the carnage in New York. We got a full tour of all the Avengers avenging to the max and showing off their team's skills. While we've certainly seen more epic showdowns in movies like Civil War and the Infinity War duology, I don't think we've ever seen the team work together quite as well as they did right here in their first outing. Chris Hemsworth clearly wanted to prove to the world that he was just as tough without the magic hammer.
That's what they tell me.
Well, mission accomplished 250%. The long shot where Rake took his little buddy through car wrecks, a storm of bullets, and one intense grunge match with the only guy in the world who could go challenge him with a knife. It was one of those shots where you start to think, have they cut yet? And then you have to rewind back to see when the shot began. The Mission Impossible franchise is known for doing ridiculous stunts, like the famous wire scene from the first film, him free soloing that mountain in the second one, trying to outact Philip Seymour Hoffman in the third one, the building climb in the fourth one, and Tom's dangerous flight for the fifth. Perhaps the most impressive of all, though, is the halo jump from Fallout. While all those CGI clouds made the scene look super fake, that was really Tom Cruise tumbling through the cloud. This long shot is even more exciting knowing that Cruise is actually falling to his possible doom. I think that's the secret behind why these sequences are just so intense. Michael B. Jordan is quickly becoming one of Hollywood's favorite commodities. Creed is Jordan's most successful leading role to date. Adonis Creed is the son of Apollo and actually surpasses his father's skills. This became clear in the long shot where the camera sticks with Adonis through one of his toughest showdowns. The hits keep on coming through the whole match, making it look like Creed isn't going to pull through. Then he gets a pep talk from Rocky that allows him to get up and take that win. Not enough people talk about Atomic Blonde because that is the kind of female spy we need more of in Hollywood. The movie definitely lived up to the hype. This wasn't the glamorous, almost superheroic fight scenes we often get from a spy action sequence. Nope, this was a brutal, toe-curling exchange that sent Charlize down a staircase and into an apartment where she had to use everything she could get her hands on as a weapon. She had to shatter bones, take blows, and creatively use a wine opener. The Kingsmen drives into all of the camp and class of the Bond franchise while also including the straight-up brutality the PG-13 James Bond never delivered. The most famous scene from this came when Mr. Darcy himself was activated by Samuel L. Jackson to viciously dispatch everyone in a church building. What followed was a ridiculously well-choreographed dance sequence of blood and carnage that is one of the most shared action sequences YouTube has ever seen. By far, my favorite scene in Inception was the famous revolving hallway showdown where Joseph Gordon-Levitt took on a projection. While the rest of the sequence had plenty of quick cuts in it, Nolan kept the camera on Arthur to show that this particular scene wasn't CGI at all. They actually made a revolving hallway, and it took a ton of training for Joe and the stunt team to master. We can call him Joe. The reason why it looks like Arthur is fighting while his world was flipped upside down is, well, because it was. To me, that's cooler than being able to fold a city in half. I'm not even gonna lie. The movie 1917 blew me away. While the movie seemed to be in one genre, I would say it was 100% a horror movie, where World War I was the monster. The two soldiers were entrusted with the most important mission of the conflict, and it was a terrifying experience. This was conveyed in the movie's opening moments that was told in one of the most impressive continuous shots I've ever seen. We watched as the lead characters moved through the trenches past hundreds of extras and into the fray. Anytime anyone made the smallest error, everybody had to go back to ones. Okay, Spider-Man 3 was not the most popular Spidey film out there. Well, aside from that one scene where Tobey Maguire really dances there is one scene in Sam Raimi's third webhead outing that is truly heartbreaking. That is, of course, the sequence where the Sandman tries desperately to reform himself out of sand. His sad attempts to go from living sand to a human form are all one consecutive tragic shot, until he notices his daughter's locket and the camera cuts away. After he sees his primary motivation in life, he's able to fully reform himself and then go on a crime spree. Hooray for happy endings. Spectre had a lot riding on it, following Daniel Craig's legendary turn in Skyfall. While his fourth Bond flick didn't quite reach its predecessor's heights, it did succeed in delivering another truly memorable opening scene. This time Bond was dressed head to toe in a skull costume during a Day of the Dead festival. The camera follows Bond as he moves like a true secret agent through the festival, until of course things devolve into a giant, high-concept action scene. It's kinda weird that Leonardo DiCaprio won an Oscar for The Revenant, since there's really only one scene anyone ever remembers from the film. That is the scene where Leo fights off a bear in an extended action scene where DiCaprio gets torn to shreds. Looking back on it though, the bear was the one who really deserved the Oscar. Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood may be his most controversial film to date, but not because of the brutal moments of violence. Nope, it's because of the Bruce Lee scene that depicted the famed martial artist as a little guy with a big mouth. What isn't controversial about the scene is how well it's filmed. The entire conversation leading up to the showdown between Lee and Cliff Booth is one continuous shot, including Lee knocking Booth to the ground. The first cut comes with the big twist where Cliff unexpectedly tosses Lee into a car so hard that the door looks like Lee just laid down on a memory foam mattress. If you got Steven Spielberg and Peter Jackson together for an animated film, you can be sure that something marvelous is gonna happen. For The Adventures of Tintin, that marvelous something is the long take action sequence where our heroes are chased while riding a motorcycle. Unfortunately, the rest of the scene can't quite compete with how flawless this scene is. If there's one reason why one-take action sequences are so popular in Hollywood, it's because of the Korean classic Oldboy. Now, I don't think I could describe any of the plot of the film without getting demonetized, but midway through the movie there is a brutal action scene where the main character gets attacked by a crowd of people. He uses a hammer, his fists, and his raw, unyielding strength of will to win at all costs. Apparently every filmmaker in Hollywood loved this scene just as much as I did because they've been ripping off it ever since. The movie Children of Men stands alongside other films famous for insanely long tracking shots. This post-apocalyptic nightmare film features multiple scenes that keep you engaged with the horrifying scenes Clive Owen and his company find themselves in. The only problem with it is that Children of Men is one of those brutal watches where you really don't need to see it a second time, but you should. Now, all the MCU has to do is greenlight a Daredevil movie. We could finally see one of those infamous hallway fights on the big screen.